And let me test again. Those at home, you can hear us okay?
Yes, we can.
I
Okay, we're ready to go. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties. Boy, I understand it. And she's way of a better technician than me. I'd be screaming meeting. Hey, welcome everybody to the Montana State Library Commission's August meeting. I'm Robin Scribner, Chairman of the MSL Commission, and I call this meeting to order. As your chair, I'm going to ensure that this commission has an effective meeting with a transparent decision-making process. I would like to ask our commissioners and staff members to introduce ourselves. So let's go ahead with commissioners. I can't see you, so let's go ahead with Carmen. Your name starts, your last name, or if Elsie's there, Carmen, whoever.
Sorry, I'm chewing. My name is Carmen Cuthbertson. I'm a State Library Commissioner from Kalispell.
Thank you. Good morning. Elsie, are you here?
I sure am. This is Elsie Arnson, State Superintendent. Good to be here today. School doors are opening across our state.
They are.
They
They
sure
are.
are.
Hey, Tammy, go ahead.
I'm here. Welcome. I'm looking forward to it, and I'm inside where the mosquitoes cannot go.
Good.
Thank you, Brian.
Mosquitoes? And is Brian here?
Yes, this is Brian Rossman. I'm a commissioner and I'm in Bozeman today.
Hi, Brian. Hey, and Peggy.
Good morning. My name is Peggy Taylor and I'm in Whitefish today.
I love your staircase or your
Yeah.
balcony up behind you. Good morning, everybody. Now we'll have our staff introduce themselves.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jenny Stapp. It's my privilege to be the state librarian.
Genevieve Whiteheiser, Admin Specialist, State Librarian.
It's just the three of us in here today. We have other staff members online.
Yeah.
If they would like to speak up, go ahead. If you don't want to, that's fine. If we need to speak with you later, you can introduce yourselves. Okay, if you have any questions about Robert's Rules, Commissioner Peggy Taylor has agreed to help us. We don't have very many action items today, so I'm not going to go into my spiel about that. With that being said, I'd like to ask if there are any changes or additions to the agenda. Okay, if not, does anyone have anything that they want pulled from the consent agenda to be discussed separately?
We do have a couple of staff introductions.
Oh, I'm sorry, staff
Yeah.
introductions, we
Yeah.
missed that one.
Yeah,
We'll let Jenny go ahead with that and then we'll go on to the staff or to the consent agenda.
thanks, Robin. And I think Savannah Sill is online. Savannah, are you online?
I am.
Great. We welcomed Savannah Sill on July 8th as our new Montana Library Network Coordinator, which means that she is responsible for helping us to plan and execute a number of our statewide programs like Montana Library to Go and our courier program, our OCLC group services contract. She's helping us to envision how libraries can play a deeper role in digital literacy and providing internet access in their communities and looking for ways where we can provide scalable common solutions to users' needs through Montana Library. We hired Savannah from the National Guard where she was working on issues of parents and family opportunities within military families. And we were just blown away by Savannah in her interview. One of the things that she immediately grasped was the importance of planning and using data and evaluation in our planning. And she's just really hit the ground running and we're just very happy to have Savannah with us.
Welcome, Savannah.
Thank
Welcome.
you. I'm very happy to be here.
And then Tracy is going to introduce our new consulting librarian, Corey Sloan.
Hello, commissioners. I guess I should introduce myself, Tracy, the lead consulting and learning librarian. It's my pleasure to introduce Corey Sloan. She also started on July 8th, And she is providing service, help, and assistance to libraries in Broad Valleys and Pathfinder. She's already jumped in, made some of her solo flight visits to help libraries out, and she's also assisting us with some upcoming trainings. Corey was at the Bozeman Public Library, where she was the head of adult programming and outreach. So she brings a wealth of experience with library services, which is great for us. She also brings much enthusiasm and a very fun sense of humor, which we have all enjoyed, and the librarians have already told me they very much enjoy as well. So Corey, will you please say hello to the commissioners?
Hi, everybody. Good to see you this morning. Hello from Bozeman.
Hey,
Good
Corey.
morning.
That's it.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Well, welcome Savannah and Corey. We're happy to have you aboard. Okay, now I'll jump into the consent agenda. Does anyone want anything pulled from the consent agenda to be discussed separately? Okay, this includes the minutes from the June 12th meeting. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I so move.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
So it has been properly moved and seconded that we accept the consent agenda as is. Is there any further discussion? Okay, any public comment? Okay, seeing none, we will now vote on this motion, which is to accept the consent agenda as is. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say no or nay. Okay, the consent agenda has been approved by a voice vote. Okay, that was quick. Okay, our fiscal year 24 fourth quarter financial report. We do need to take action on this also. If you've all had an opportunity to take a look at it.
I make a motion that we approve the fiscal year 2024 fourth quarter financial report.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Okay, it has been properly moved and seconded that we accept the fiscal year 2024 fourth quarter financial report as is. Is there any further discussion?
I just had a couple questions. Jenny, do you have any overview or how you're doing or how you feel about it all?
Thanks for the question, Tammy, and I know Melissa's on as well. We did review the fourth quarter financial report with the Finance Committee on Friday. As you know, with some of the lost revenue in our Montana Geospatial Information account, we had to make some pretty severe cuts at the end of last fiscal year, and we have a very austere budget going into 2025. And I just want to thank our staff for being so diligent in helping us to adjust to the revenue shortfalls that we were experiencing. We ended the year well as could be expected in kinds of fiscal, the fiscal experience that we're currently going through. And I know that staff are monitoring diligently the new budget that we have in F5. I don't think there's anything else that I would draw to your attention except for the fact that we were able to ensure that our budget accounted for that loss of revenue that we started experiencing last fiscal year.
Okay, anyone else? Is there any further discussion? Is there any public comment? Okay, seeing as there's none, We will now vote on the motion, which is to accept the fiscal year 2024 fourth quarter financial report. All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay or no. I say aye also. I said aye to the first one.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the fiscal year 2024 fourth quarter financial report has been approved by a voice vote. Okay, now we're on to the collective bargaining agreement overview. This was to be done by our union negotiation leads, and one is Jenny. Tom is the other lead, and he is on the Flathead with his family right now, so which is a wonderful place to be. So we're gonna let Jenny.
I just wanted to provide a little bit more information and context for the collective bargaining process. You have a copy of the collective bargaining agreement in your meeting materials. Those will eventually be posted to the Department of Administration's page along with the other collective bargaining agreements for other agencies and state government. The process to go through collective bargaining was led by the Department of Administration's Office of Labor Relations. We were able to work with state human resources as well as an attorney from the Office of Labor Relations to guide what was really an iterative negotiation process. As Robin mentioned, Tom and I were our union negotiation leads. We were assisted by Sharon as our human resources specialist. We were also assisted by a larger collective bargaining work group that included Tom, Peggy, Carmen, Sharon, Melissa, the Department of Administration, and myself. The process involved the union presenting a draft collective bargaining agreement to the work group for us to review and consider, identify what commonalities we had within the agreements and where we felt like there was room for improvement. We then presented our recommendations for the collective bargaining agreement, and in a sit-down meeting of the union and the negotiating team, we were able to come to agreement on the collective bargaining agreement. That work was concluded on July 3rd. A few things that I would make note for the commission. The Department of Administration is working very hard to standardize the language as much as possible across these collective bargaining agreements. And so in their opinion, this agreement is very standard. This is, of course, the first time the state library has been involved in collective bargaining, so we don't have a lot of experience to bring to the table. However, relying on D of A, they let us know that they feel like this is a fairly standard agreement that they would see with other agencies. By and large, what is in the collective bargaining agreement really just memorializes the current practices that have already been in place to ensure that they continue into the future. The next steps for us is to provide training for our supervisors. As I said, we're not familiar with working in this kind of unionized environment, and so we want to make sure that our supervisors have the appropriate training to work effectively with members of the union, and D of A is responsible for helping to provide that training for us. And so Sharon is taking the lead on working with them to get that organized. The other point that D of A wanted me to convey to the commission is that this agreement, they use what they call the four corners principle, meaning that what is contained within the collective bargaining agreements, those matters contained in the CBA are controlled by this document. The CBA is the controlling document for any of those matters. And so in the future, when we want to review or consider changes to those matters, we look to this collective bargaining agreement as our first point of review. Are there any questions for me?
Jenny, I have a question. Beyond the commissioners who are involved in negotiating the CBA, does the commission have any role with respect to the union moving forward, or is that something now that is pretty much in operations within state government?
Brian, I think as long as we are operating within the four corners of the document really guides that kind of relationship as it pertains to those matters. Should we want to consider any of those matters, especially any changes to those matters, then there would need to be involvement with the union itself. And I imagine we would go through a similar process involving a union negotiation team.
Okay, thank you.
The other point I'll make is that this current bargaining agreement runs through June 30th of 2025. Most agreements last for 2 years. We're in the middle of the biennium when this was adopted, so it's really for 1 year. The agreement can be open for negotiation after January 1 of this next year. And then we'll sign a new agreement at the end of this fiscal year.
I have a few questions, if that's okay.
Go ahead, Tammy.
Okay, will these meetings, were they taped or where we could listen to them or?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay, and if there are meetings, can we attend as just, just to be there as viewers, not taking part?
That's a question I'll have to ask D of A. I don't know.
Okay, I was just curious if, yes, if they're taped and if they can be taped, just so the rest of us hear what's happening.
I believe I previously asked and I don't know if I asked D of A, but it would have, there'd be a quorum if more than, because Peggy and Tom and Carmen are all on the committee. So if there was more people, more of us commissioners watching, that's what I had.
That's a good point, Robin. And
I think I asked.
we have been advised that negotiations cannot happen in a public meeting.
Okay,
And
so
so-
it can't be taped.
Right.
But would you follow up on that, just see?
Certainly.
Because I think it's important just to be in the loop of what's all happening. Okay,
Right, I think I asked our representative from the D of A and she said that probably not for everybody to be there, but we can
right,
ask.
but as far as it being taped, so we hear.
But no, it was if we, not if we were being taped, but if like, cause I said I would like to watch. I believe she said no, then it would be a quorum
Right.
and then it would be a public meeting, it would have to be announced and it can't be.
Right.
a meeting,
That makes sense.
yeah.
Okay, so no to the attendance and you'll check on the taping. Okay, my next question is, how many people are covered in of our 50? How many is it? 52? How many are members of the, and it said they exclude management, so how many are management that are excluded for that reason?
Sharon, do you have those numbers?
Yes, we are currently at 50 staff and I believe it was 32 staff are covered under the collective bargaining agreement. Basically, anyone who is a supervisor is considered to be management and they are not covered by the collective bargaining.
So how many of the 50 members are considered supervisors or management?
I believe it's 17 or 18. I don't have the number right in front of me, but that's roughly where the number we've been. So
Okay.
it's senior management, human resources is automatically excluded, and then any supervisor.
So we're probably at 30% management of our, maybe.
Yeah, that would be about right.
Or 20%. Okay. And my last question, I really thought the agreement was easy to read and like every agreement I've seen. So I thought it was, as you say, very standard. And I just had a question in general about the process with the percentage of raises. It said that there would be 100 or $1.50 an hour or 4% every year. Now, is that in addition to what the state does or in place of, or how does that work?
Tammy, that is just for this fiscal year. It's not for every year. It's only for FY 25. And that's the language that was approved by the legislature in House Bill 13, this last legislative session.
That's right.
So-
Okay.
So this agreement does not contain any requirements for raises in the future.
Okay, so it's still decided by the legislature. And this was just to clarify that that raise didn't come from this document, but it came from the legislature.
And it also ensures that nothing in this agreement prevented staff from getting the legislatively authorized raises.
I understand. Yeah, I was just trying to understand why it was repeated in there and if it was additional. Thank you for helping me with that. I appreciate all the hard work that Peggy and Carmen and Tom put in on this and all the people on the staff side. And thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
Quick math check for you, Tammy. If out of 50 staff, 32 are union members and 18 are considered supervisors, that's 36% of the staff that's considered supervisors.
Okay, 36%. Okay. Thanks, Carmen.
You're welcome.
Okay,
One
all right.
question, sorry,
Yes.
one
Carmen,
question.
go ahead.
Jenny, would you enumerate for us what those 4 corners or those 4 issues are that are covered by the?
I literally think she means like 4 corners, like a frame. This is the frame of what covers these matters. I don't think she meant actually 4 issues. She said, she's Caitlin Bouzas, I apologize, the attorney that guided this process. And she said that attorneys would get the 4 corners reference.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
not 4
What's-
issues, but like literally 4
What's
corners.
included in the frame, right? Framework?
Yes,
Okay,
exactly.
got it.
Does that help?
Yes, yes.
Are we going to hear from just the state representative just about in general the language and what from that point of view, or is there any need for that?
We invited them, but they declined.
Okay. So will we have reports periodically, or how does this work?
Not to my knowledge, unless there's an issue.
Okay. And my final question, most of this does, I mean, it applies between you and your staff because it's mostly about evaluation and that's your responsibility, Jenny. So it's you and the staff and how they function with you.
I think that's largely a fair assessment.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet.
So, Madam Chair, this is Superintendent Elsie Arnson.
Yes.
If I could just add a little bit. So if I can understand this, Jenny, this is the first CBA or collective bargaining agreement that the state library under you have participated in.
That's correct.
Initial, okay. My understanding that we have quarterly meetings. We have a group that is management as well, and I participate or have my deputy participate in it in leadership. We also have an equal amount of labor that also is there of union members. And sometimes we get an invitation from the MFP that does come into this outside of the ones that are employed here at the OPI. They're agended meetings. We have never had them recorded. We've never had other individuals come and participate. It doesn't presuppose that that couldn't happen. It's just part of our agreement that we have together. And there's multiple things that gets on the agenda. We share the agenda, so one time it's labor that creates the agenda. The next time it's management that creates the agenda. It's a very good working arrangement that I've had for the 8 years as I've been state superintendent. We talk about difficult issues. We've never riffed anybody or had any discussion when we were low in budget that was going to harm or hinder the mission. We discuss all kinds of policies, as we are a telework agency that now is a hybrid model. So it's not just about the dollars, it's about work environment and how work is attributed at the agency. But it's a good working group that we have, and happy to share anything else, Jenny, with you as we move forward. We're not necessarily a model, but it's something that does promote a good environment for all of the people that are employed at the OPI, but also it doesn't, or it should, as I said, as it does, increases our mission to serve our public schools. So just a little bit of thought. Thank you.
I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Elsie.
I have a comment.
Yeah.
Jenny, there was one component about the commissioners following a process for going through you. Do you want to mention that, please?
Oh, sure. Thank you, Peggy. I think you're referring to what is in, let's see, it's Article 2, Section 9, under Federation rights. It says that communication to Federation employees shall be achieved by submitting an internal help desk ticket through management. We are utilizing the state's help desk ticketing system now called ServiceNow. And under this agreement, requests to employees who are in the collective bargaining agreement would come through that help desk ticket. And so you're welcome to submit any requests for information, reports, other inquiries to me, and I'll make sure that they're submitted through that help desk ticket so that they can be properly responded to by staff.
Okay, so we still talk to you and then you do the help desk.
Exactly.
Okay, so we're still really handling things the way we did before. Okay.
That's right. Yeah.
So does anybody feel any need to have maybe a Zoom meeting or something where somebody walks us through this? Or I'm not necessarily feeling that way, because I feel that this is pretty much a document for Jenny and her staff for working together. But I would like to know if we need any training, especially so we don't accidentally step in a landmine we didn't know was in here.
Like I said, I invited DFA to come to this meeting. I know I would have been more comfortable if they were here to guide the conversation, but they declined. They did say that if you have any questions for them, they're happy to answer questions that you might have. So if you have questions, please do let us know.
So basically, they would prefer not to attend a meeting and discuss it. So if you do have questions, then call them.
But because this is our first beginning ever, I wonder, maybe Tom, when he's here, could we have some time, and Tom could walk through and tell us from our point of view then what the relevant parts are, because he was our representative.
I think
I mean,
that's,
maybe there's no need for that. I'm pretty comfortable with these documents, having worked with the school board ones, but maybe it's just good to know what we can and can't do and shouldn't do.
I think it wouldn't be bad to get just a walkthrough. It could even be something that the D of A makes available to us as a video of them going through the document and just telling us, here's what this means, here's what the significance is of this. I think that couldn't hurt. Maybe they even have some kind of intro to union documents that we could look at. Jenny, if you could see if that's available, or if they would make something like that available to us, that we could even individually look at or listen to ourselves, that would, I think, would be useful to us.
Jenny, or Commissioner
Yes.
Robin,
Yes.
what about, could we just include that as maybe one of the sessions of training, have your
Information.
trainings for what supervisors have to do, and then is there anything that we need to know? I don't think we need to have a special meeting, but that we could maybe just include it as a training for us along with Tom and get his perspective.
I think that's a good idea.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I'm taking these notes.
Thank you, Tammy, for suggesting that.
Well, you're welcome. I appreciate that you did ask the Department of Admissions. I'd like to know why I may call them and just find out why they didn't come present for us. I think we have to be knowledgeable about something this important. I think it's respectful of us to be knowledgeable about this for our employees.
Maybe they thought we would ask them questions that they couldn't answer because of the agreement.
But that's the very point I'm asking is, thank you, Robin, for that, Madam Chair. That's kind of what I want to know. Are there things we shouldn't even ask, approach, or whatever?
Yeah. Sure. Okay. All right, so that's a good idea. We'll have Jenny.
Yep.
Jenny will look into it and see what we can do from there. Okay, is there any further discussion about the collective bargaining agreement? We don't have, it's not an action item, so it's a discussion item. Okay, anything else about that? If not, we'll go on to the fiscal year 2024 annual report content discussion, and we'll ask Rebecca to share information with us.
Good morning.
Good morning, Rebecca.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Camp. I'm the Montana State Library Data Coordinator. And thank you, Chair Scribner and the State Library Commission for inviting me to talk about the Montana State Library's annual report. The annual report is published each year on September 1st, so that's rapidly approaching. For the last 7 years, we've used an application called Story Maps to produce the annual report. However, the software is being sunsetted, which is an opportunity to reimagine what our annual report looks like and what it communicates. The State Library Commission is one of the primary audiences for this report, and you've shown interest in incorporating more data. So I wanted to have a conversation with you about the report and what information you would find the most useful. The agenda includes a link to the MSL annual reports from the last actually several decades. And I'm going to share my screen to pull that up. We can see your screen, Rebecca. Oh, excellent. Thank you for letting me know. So on screen, you're seeing our annual report from last year as well as previous years. And I also spent some time reaching out to data coordinators from other states to get an idea of what their annual reports look like. And I wanted to share a few of those reports with you because some of them inspired me for different reasons. And I think they're a good starting place for talking about what we want our report to communicate. So I'm going to pull those up right now. And the first of which is from the Utah State Library. And I think of all the reports I looked at, this was probably my favorite in terms of the overall content and layout, but especially how they have displayed their performance measures section. So I'm going to scroll down to the performance measures. And so what they've done is pulled out some of their key programs and then communicated what their targets were, as well as their actual performance for the last year. And I think this is a good framework that we could also use within our report, possibly with an adjustment to include the previous fiscal year as a point of comparison. Another report that I appreciated was from, there's actually two that kind of have a similar theme going on. One is from California and one is from Indiana. And this is California's report, the specific section that I wanted to call out. And so they've pulled out some key measures from their programs and just inserted them as big numbers to draw attention to them. And Indiana has done something similar with a slight variation to also include some context of whether this was an increase, whether it's a decrease or has remained stable. And I think this is another way that we could communicate some of the statistics you might like to see. I do think having the contextual information is very important so that we can compare to the previous year. And then the final report that I wanted to share with you comes from Colorado. And what I liked about Colorado's report is the simple way that they communicate their financial data. So their financial report includes where the money comes from, where the money goes. And it's demonstrated in a pie chart or a donut chart. And I think that's a really clear way to communicate the data while we still could link out to our existing financial report for a more in-depth view of our financials. With those reports, as well as our previous annual reports in mind, I wanted to ask you, what key data would you like to see in this upcoming annual report? I've got a skeleton that I've been working on for the report with just the information. Looks very similar to the layout you saw from Utah, calling out our mission, as well as an about section with our leadership, our commission and councils. And then there'll be a section to include our statutes and rules, including any changes that have happened in the last year. And then this would be followed by our success measures and our financials. And so what's included in those measures is the piece that I'm really interested in hearing from the commission and what you would like to see in that section.
I have something, Rebecca. We discussed this in our financial meeting the other day. Tom asked about grants and just where, who they come from and where do they go. And I noticed that there were several going to BATS just by looking at it. And for me, it would be so interesting just to find out what the grant is, where it's coming from, and just a little brief explanation of where it went.
Mhm.
What are the BATS doing? And Bryce Maxwell, we're hoping will come and visit with us, but how interesting to know that BLM gave us money for a BAT study. The Forest Service gave us money, the United States Forest Service gave us money for BATS. So it would just be interesting to find out what these different grants are and where they're going. And Tom asked that too, so.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea and would be a really good addition to our financial section.
Does anybody else have any ideas?
I would like to comment. I strongly agree that numbers by themselves without a context are not very useful unless you have previous experience in whatever numbers you're looking at. So the comparison to the previous year is great. And maybe even more meaningful is like an average of the last 10 years or a graph that shows, a trend. Are the magazine checkouts just tanking and it's been slowly going down for the last 10 years? Or is there a trend? I think data is even more valuable when you can draw out a trend. And sometimes just the previous year isn't that meaningful. Like we saw during the pandemic, numbers went haywire. So if you compared just to the previous year, things look pretty catastrophic and libraries are gonna go under because nobody's going there. Well, that was because of the pandemic. So maybe a 10-year average also to compare to, in addition to the previous year, maybe you could have 3 columns, average of the last 10 years, previous year, this year, something that would allow even a layperson to kind of see a trend. I think that could be very useful. And I very much like the Colorado State Library circle to show the percentages of where the money's coming from and where it's going. I think that's intuitively easy to understand for anyone. That's a really great way to show that. So kudos to you for finding those examples. Thank you.
Thanks, Carmen.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Brian.
I would agree with Carmen that I think representing the data in graphical formats is probably a lot more compelling than just giving us straight numbers. I think those examples that Rebecca showed us were great, and I think you're heading in the right direction to emulate them.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I don't know if this is the correct spot, but there's been some highlights with some of our libraries as the Big Fork Library opened, which is a congratulations to them and to the Flathead County for getting that started. But you know, they're working on Belgrade. There's examples of some great things happening in the local libraries. But I'm not sure if this is where you want it or, but we need to highlight them somewhere, somehow.
I think that's an interesting suggestion, and I did see that in some of the other state library reports where they've pulled out some highlights, as you said, from libraries around the state, and maybe paired that with some of the public library survey data that was collected. I think that's something we could add as well.
Great suggestions. Oh, Rebecca, I'm sure this adds a whole bunch more to your plate.
Well, I'm excited to work on it and to present it to you once it's finished.
Great, great. Are there any other? Okay,
Thanks, Rebecca, and thank
Yeah,
you,
thank you,
commissioners,
Rebecca.
for all your input. This is really helpful.
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, we're going to go on then to the personnel evaluation process. Now that is where we evaluate Jenny, correct? Yes.
Right, there's been some discussion amongst the commissioners that you're dissatisfied with the state's system for conducting evaluations. And the commission hasn't really settled on a process for that evaluation. And so there was a request to have that be a discussion item on this agenda. You do have a personnel committee that is responsible for working with Sharon on that process.
Right now, and I remember that what the discussion was is that our process basically was on an evaluation by the staff of Jenny. And we were wondering if there should be the process should be based on what we are, our evaluation of Jenny. And so what we need to do is come up with a commission-led evaluation over a staff-led evaluation. I believe that's kind of what we were discussing. Does anyone else have further ideas about that?
Robin, Madam Chair, I was very concerned, and I think several of us were, that exactly what you said, that the documents we had were adequate for 50% of what, and that was from the staff to Jenny as to how they perceived her. And that is, of course, a big part of the evaluation for us. So we needed that. But what we didn't have was a document that allowed us to evaluate Jenny and Jenny us and the process between us. I did bring in a one-page document and give it to everybody at a meeting a few months ago, of one that I had developed for training, but it was initially drawn up for superintendents of schools. But I did think it was a basic good leadership one. And other members were going to bring in, I think, Brian, do you work with a board or a management system that you answer to, or, and so what I would like us to be sure we have is other documents so we can choose one. I think we need a document that we can all fill out on management of Jenny and how that management's perceived. Do you need me to get you that copy again, or does everybody still have it?
You could send me one. Jenny has one right here.
Yeah,
But
I gave them to all the staff. I'm not saying it was
Oh,
supposed to be a jumping off point. It was supposed to be something that we evaluated as a group and said, no, don't ask this, yes, ask this. This is important, this isn't. It's easier to work from something than just start with nothing at this point.
Right.
So that's what it was. And if other people have other documents, I'm sure Peggy was probably evaluated by superintendent when she was a principal. So I'm sure you have documents like that, and we can look at all of them and whatever. But we need
Right.
something, a document to work from.
Right, okay, and I agree. So yours was, yours basically is prepared, interacts well with others, maintains objectivity towards most situation, analyzes problems, shares information, gives opinions, exhibits cooperative attitude and values teamwork, answers questions rather than evades, avoids personalizing differences, is concise and avoids redundancy, supports the role of the chair, supports the decisions of the commission, helps the group stay on track, values confidences, moves past conflicts, admits fault when wrong. Those are, and then the scale is does well, number 1, and goes to number 5, needs improvement.
And so we can change that document or not use that document, I'm fine. That was just one that each person would fill out individually, give it to the personnel committee, they would tabulate it, and it would give us a jumping off place.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Carmen?
I would like to see other examples forwarded to the Personnel Committee, and for the Personnel Committee to work on creating an evaluation document that the commission can use just the way the staff uses their evaluation document. But I think this should be referred to the committee.
Sure, that's a good idea. Peggy does have a conflict. She gets to go on a train trip through Europe, but it's only from we don't have
September
to-
23rd through October 15th.
Right, and we do not have to start on the evaluation process basically until October, because it's due in December. But if we could get some ideas on how this possibly could be changed, we could get together even after, I mean, or will we need to vote? Will we need to vote on? No, we won't need to vote because the personnel committee can decide. So what do you think? Do you think there's conflict for Peggy? I don't actually believe there would be.
I think
We
if
could
we
meet-
had like a meeting to get started and have a set time.
Right,
I don't know when
before-
Tom will be back. Try
He'll
to
be
meet
back.
a little
He'll
bit
be back
before.
after this weekend. He'll be back after this weekend. We can,
If we
set
could
up
meet
a
between now and the 15th or the 23rd of September and start the process, and then we could get going on it
Sure.
from there, and then see what we could get together.
okay. And Tammy, you have a jumping off point for us, which is, thank you, we don't have to invent the wheel, but if everybody else could send their ideas along to us, that would be great.
Madam Chair, we did have this discussion when we went through the evaluation process
You
back
did.
with our articles, and people were going to contribute at that point. And I don't think anyone else, I did, but I don't know if that means they didn't have a document they wanted. But I think we have to be very clear on I would think maybe Elsie would be a good person to ask because Elsie's exactly in this situation. She works with a Board of Education, so she would probably have, maybe she would have a document we could look at, but I think we need to know where we're gonna get these documents or if we're gonna get them and be a little more clear on this, especially if the committee's moving forward. I don't want to just leave it out there. If you have something, I think, I know I said I had one and I said it again. I don't think Elsie, we asked her, but Elsie would be really good. Again, Brian, I don't know, Carmen, but anybody else, Tom said he did not have a document that would be appropriate at the time. Elsie, is she on?
I have old teacher evaluations, but that's, that's what.
That goes, yeah, that goes with Jenny to her staff. So I
Right.
think we need it the other direction. Is Elsie on? Is she still with us? Okay.
Yes, I sure am. I am here. So Tammy, you wanted to know if we had any templates for this?
That's what I'm thinking. Just a template that you use with your Board of Education when they're evaluating you. Is there
Right.
any, if you had a template or something you like that you could hand in and the committee could look
Right.
at that along with this simple one that I sent in?
Just to clarify, as an elected, the voters are the ones that
Right.
view my performance every 4 years and term limited, so I only have the first of those in that election process. But I'm sure that there are other templates that I can definitely look at and see. As you had said, within a school district, of course, there are those. So I can, and it may be applicable and it may not be, but I'd be more than happy to ship some over. What's our time frame again? That you need these by?
October, or no, probably before.
Sure. I can get them to
We're
you
having
by
a
before
sub-
yeah, and where will they go to, Madam Chair?
You can send them to me.
Hot diggity, I'll do that. I'll make sure.
I'll forward them onto our,
Like if we had them by like
if we had,
Excellent.
okay, if we had them by September 13th, that would
I'll-
probably be.
I don't think we need them that soon because this evaluation's in December, so we
Well-
have to review it before
I
then.
know, but before Peggy leaves, then we could possibly, we can discuss them with her before she leaves.
For sure. I'll get my homework done before the end of the month. How's that?
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay.
And then do we want to send out a copy of the one I did again? Or,
Yes, please do.
Okay, well,
Would you like me to send out, do
Madam Chair?
just one second. Brian, Genevieve is,
you want me to send out a poll to the subcommittee to help you guys pick a date to meet before?
Yes.
Presentation? Okay, and remind me, it's, who's on that subcommittee? I can look it up.
Peggy, Tom and I.
Okay, so I will do that and try to get that before Peggy goes on vacation. And then just a quick reminder that at the last training that the governor did for boards and commissions, he spoke directly to evaluations.
Right.
So if
Yeah.
you'd like to go, let me know if you have any trouble accessing that portal. The recording is uploaded to the portal.
I thought I watched that.
Yeah, anyways,
I'll have to look at it again.
mentioned it might help the personnel committee.
Right, okay,
that's a helpful idea. Thank you.
yes.
I think Brian.
And Brian, go ahead.
I just wanted to mention that I just put a link to a document that that MSU uses for evaluation of professional employees. So maybe Genevieve, if you could snag a copy of that and share it with everybody, that would probably be good. One thing I like about this is it starts off as a self-evaluation that the employee does, and then there's an opportunity for the supervisors, and in this case, it would be the commission, to weigh in on it. But and I like the fact that it's very narrative based as opposed to just a Likert scale where, you give people, rate them on a scale of 1 to 5 or something. So it gives people those being reviewed and those reviewing an opportunity to provide substantial context and input. So
I like that.
yet another example for people to look at.
We need.
And I would remind us again that this is to help the discussion, that takes place at Jenny's evaluation. It was hard to have a discussion about the commissioners and Jenny when we had nothing to work from.
Right. Exactly. We did, yeah, it was just difficult writing the evaluation also because we had to write what we interpreted the employees were saying, you know, so it was difficult there too. So maybe this will make it should make it a little less of a burdensome project. Okay. Okay, everybody, does that sound okay? Good? I hope so. Okay, if so, we'll move on to the standard reports and information items. And that goes to Jenny.
Yeah. So there's a few things in your standing reports I just wanted to call to your attention, and then I'm happy to answer any questions. I want to thank Rebecca and our leads for their work in helping to make some updates and changes to the FY25 work plan dashboard. I don't know if you can bring that up, Genevieve. This is still a little bit of a work in progress, but there's a couple of things I wanted to bring to your attention. One, we're trying to make it more graphical so that some of the impact of our work, as we were just talking about, is called to your attention more readily in the work plan. And then we are also working to try to make sure that it's more obvious that our annual work plan objectives align to some of our required strategic plans, like our Library Services and Technology Act plan and our Geospatial Information Plan, as well as some of the statutes that guide other programs. So as our staff are completing their work on the FY25 work plan, you'll see more of this kind of information be shared with you and others that are referring to this plan. Again, this is the plans that guide and articulate the work that we want to accomplish in the coming year. The other thing I'll just point out for the commission is that we are in the second year of a biennium. So a lot of the work largely remains the same. There's not a lot of new initiatives that I would call to your attention. And then because of the budget constraints and some of the budget belt tightening that we've had to do, there isn't a lot of spending for any kind of new initiatives. So much of what you're going to see in the second year of the biennium will mirror the work that was accomplished in this last fiscal year. But I hope that this work plan is a way that continues to help you and others be more familiar with the objectives and the goals that we're working to accomplish. And Rebecca has been working incredibly hard on how to present this information well and working with her peers to make sure that the objectives really align with those larger strategic plans. And then I don't know if you noticed in the fiscal report in the financial dashboard, there are links now to some of those plans as well, so that in order to try to address some of Tom's questions about how the funding aligns with the different objectives, we're working to try to make some connections between those two dashboards so that you can see how the funding aligns with some of those projects. So it's a little bit of a work in progress, and we look forward to sharing more with you as we move through the fiscal year.
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Go ahead, Carmen.
Jenny, where do the work plans come from? It seemed, from what I looked at, looks like the ELSTA is a requirement. You have
Yes.
to put one together to get the funding. How many work plans do we have and who puts them together and for what purpose?
Good question. We are required by federal law to have a Library Services and Technology Act plan, as you point out. We're required by state law to have a geospatial information plan. And then the other work plans are intended to help us document what our goals are for the coming year and how those goals meet the intent of statute for our programs. We are not necessarily required to have strategic plans for all of our programs. The work plans themselves are created by our lead staff in conversations with their staff and in conversation with me, and are intended to articulate how we are going to be meeting the intent of statute and accomplishing the goals that are articulated in those strategic plans. So they're really developed by the lead staff.
And how long do we usually plan for?
We do an annual work plan, but you will often see that the objectives have a longer time frame. So an objective might have a 2 or 3 year horizon. What we are documenting in the work plan are those milestones or tasks that we think we can accomplish in a fiscal year. So for example, our LSTA plan is a 5-year plan. What's in the work plan is what we think we will accomplish in this coming fiscal year.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions on the work plan? You have in your materials our 4th quarter contracts report, wrapping up that fiscal year. And then I wanted to also talk a little bit about the 4th quarter grants report. At your last meeting, the idea of having a quarterly grant report came out of a concern that the state library staff not seek grant requests from the Trust for Montana Libraries. And you directed us to ensure that the commission is involved in any decision involving the Trust for Montana Libraries. And so we understand and will adhere to that request. However, in looking at the nature of a grant report, what we found was that these grants are already contained in your financial report. And so we wanted to draw that to your attention. So let's see, I think you're on the projects tab. So if you could scroll down a little bit to the
Sorry.
Yep, there we go, to the heritage program. I think it's down. So it's really within our heritage program that we have the bulk of the grants that the agency receives. And those grants are called to your attention. For example, the BLM, EPA, all of those funding sources are grants that our heritage program receives for different purposes. Robin already brought to our attention the BAT grants, and we're happy to bring Bryce in to talk about the purpose of those kinds of grants. We felt like creating a separate grant report was just duplicating the information that's already in your financial report. And so it might be better to draw to the attention of the commission that information and to provide more information about what's in your financial report rather than creating a separate report for you. So I wanted to make sure that you were aware of that and ask for any feedback that you have about that process.
I just need clarification. So within this item, are these all grants under the Heritage Program?
I think everything under those projects are grants.
And are they 1 year? Do they follow through?
Many of them are just for 1 year. Some of them do follow through. Where you see unspent balances on grants, those are the grants that would carry forward into a future fiscal year.
So let me just ask you, just to give me an idea of what we're looking at here. U of M sales and SBC. What is that? The $195,000 thousand. What are we looking at there?
That's funding from the University of Montana that comes to help support the operations of the Heritage Program.
And what is sales and SBC stand for?
Sales and service.
And
a-
so it's
an
just
account
it's just
from
a
use.
general, put it somewhere.
For the operations, that's right.
Okay. And then like the University of Wyoming gave you a grant just for thick leaf to study that.
That's right. And I think Bryce is on if you have specific questions.
Yep, happy to answer any specific questions.
And so are we to assume then that thick leaf was a problem in Montana and something you needed to develop? So you got a grant for it?
That's a native plant that is very rare. It's thick leaf bladderpod, occurs down in south of the Pryor Mountains. It's been proposed for listing under the Endangered Species Act, and we're trying to do surveys for the BLM. The BLM gave money to the University of Wyoming, and that they've subcontracted some work to us with the idea of performing the surveys. Most of the species that initially show up as being rare, once we do surveys for them, we find them in more places than was originally thought they would be. So just looking at the status and distribution of this species in particular.
Interesting.
So Brian, in general, then, if we get a grant for, like, do you go out and say we have a problem with thick leaf and we need a grant for it? Or does University of Wyoming come to you and say, we have money if you'll look into this?
I would say 90% of the time, agencies are coming to us and asking us to perform this.
Okay. And so then our species, because you're mostly trying to follow the endangered or the species?
Well, yeah, keeping in mind the context of our overall statutory mission is to understand the status and distribution of all the plant and animal species in the state. Typically what agencies are buying into with us is they're either giving us money just to provide our data services, and they're buying into the fact that we are the one database that all of Montana can use to make decisions. Or they're saying, hey, could you do some specific surveys for this species or this group of species to help us better understand them?
I guess I have, I'm grateful for the grants. Let me start by saying that. But I have a little bit of concern that they're guiding our research. Because
we don't take on any projects that don't match up with our statutory mission.
Okay. And then what's the West Tech bat and who is West Tech?
West Tech is an environmental consulting firm. They're gathering bat data in this place. In this case, it's for a mine that you might have heard of near White Sulphur Springs. And they need to go through the environmental planning process for that mine and monitor. And we are the recognized authority for identifying bat calls in the state to help understand the status of bats to allow that mining process to move forward.
And so who determined that you were the environmental source for that?
We've just developed a staff member, several staff members have developed skills in terms of identifying bats by the calls that we record their ultrasonic calls. No one else has that expertise in the state.
Okay. The reason I'm asking is because these type of issues like a mine have to undergo the environmental process, and it becomes quite controversial. And there is always an environmental study that's done that is part of the court process of whether they allow the mine to go forward or don't. And who is that environmental? Do you then report to them, to that environmental study that will make the decision?
No, that's up to the agency, in this case, probably DEQ.
Right.
All we are is a source of information. We have no, management or regulatory authority.
And you would then give this information to that environmental quality group.
Any project that we take on has to be done with the understanding that it is available to everybody. So
Okay.
an individual citizen in Montana could walk in and ask us for that data.
Okay. And then why doesn't the environmental study group of the State Department do this? I mean, why would that come to you and not them?
Back when our program was established, back in 1985, it came out of the coal debates that were going on as the coal fields were being developed in the 1970s. And different agencies had different data sources, and they were coming together with those different data sources and kind of arguing it out. At the same time, heritage programs were being established all across the US and Canada. And the legislature at that point in time said, we do want one authoritative source of information on plants and animals in the state. And that way these other agencies aren't duplicating effort and essentially doubling or tripling or quadrupling the costs by, each individually maintaining staff. So it was put in place as sort of mostly to conserve overall funding.
So was the National Heritage Program of the library actually statutorily mandated by the legislature?
Correct.
Okay, and that was done in 1989.
1983, the first staff were hired in 1985.
And is that statutory requirement still on the books?
It is.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'll put it in the chat, the link to it, so you can look at the content.
I'm just trying to avoid duplication and understand where it's taking place. Thank you.
Thank you, Bryce. It's a lot of information.
Yeah, the legislature was very wise.
Yes.
When it did that.
Yeah, to put it all together.
Just a comment, Bryce, I am happy to hear that whatever we collate or wherever we use our expertise, it becomes public property, and anybody can access that information. That makes me actually feel very good, because I was a little worried that when you get to grant, you are beholden to the grantor. And I think the fact that we can only create information that's available to the public is a really great safeguard that we can use in the future. If anybody ever says, hey, you produced this result because such and so funded the study or gave you the grant. So I really like that aspect of your work. I think that's great.
I agree. I was just saying to Robin, it was very wise of the legislature back in the 1980s to perceive that a library should be the home for this kind of information, with our mission to make sure that it's publicly accessible. We're the only state where the Heritage Program resides in the state library, and that's something that I'm very proud of.
Okay. Thank you, Bryce. That's great information.
Thank you, Brian, for doing that.
You have additional standing reports or staffing memo reports that we made to the June interim budget committee. Happy to answer any questions you have about anything in those documents.
How many subscriptions do we currently have for the real-time network?
Evan, are we up to 64? I don't know if Evan's still with us. Last I heard, we were up to 64 as of last week.
And our goal is 100?
Our goal is 100 by the end of this fiscal year. So we're well on our way.
Good.
I don't have any more comments.
Okay, no more comments? Okay, did you want to say anything about the dashboard instructions or?
Those are just instructions if
For
anybody,
us,
yeah, if
okay,
anybody would prefer to
Okay.
download the information that's in the dashboard.
Okay.
And look at it down.
all right,
Yep.
perfect. Okay, the annual business calendar
Mhm.
is next.
So just a reminder for your October meeting, I will invite Bryce to come and talk about that research. And then October is when you hear from the Federation coordinators about their FY 24 Federation reports from their grants of service. We'll have your first quarter financial report from FY 25 as well. So that's what's on your agenda for your October meeting. And then also in your meeting materials is a memo with the dates for the fall Federation meetings. If any of you are available and interested in attending any of those Federation meetings.
Right, yes, and we have been kind of negligent in attending these meetings, including myself. Back a while ago, the spring meeting, Jenny told me several times that she was going to be attending one, and I did not put two and two together about it. I was in Missoula and I was headed home that day and I could have
shoot.
stopped in Fort Benton, but I didn't even put two and two together that's where you were even going.
I see.
So, I guess we do kind of need to be a little bit more diligent about trying to attend these meetings, so. We have, it looks like 2 in September and then at the beginning of October already. September 25th, the Broad Valleys Federation, then the 28th, as you all can see, the South Central Federation. Then October 3rd, Pathfinder in Fort Benton. October 3rd is also the Golden Plains Federation in Glasgow. I mean, even if we attend these Zoom.
Yeah.
That, I think that's better than not attending at all. October 4th, Sagebrush Federation in Miles City, and October 17th, Tamarack online.
And are they all Zoomed?
They all offer a Zoom option to attend. A couple of them are online only in the fall. The Broad Valleys and the Tamarack everybody will be online. And then the others do offer a Zoom option.
Okay.
Okay, is anybody interested in attending the Broad Valley Federation on September 25th? It's online, just online. Would anybody be able to attend that one?
Are
If
these
you're
usually
going-
in the evening? No, they have the times, right? Only
11, yeah.
I need to go get my calendar if we're gonna take roll call of who's gonna be where. I'll be right back.
Okay, thank you.
These are right when I'm gone, so I'll put my name down for October 17th.
Okay, thank you, Peggy.
I can do September 25th if it's online.
It is online, Brian.
Yep. So where do we get the login credentials for these meetings?
We will post the agendas, and Genevieve usually shares them out to the commission. And the credentials will be in the agendas
Great.
It's also on Aspen.
on Aspen, good, thanks.
Calendar there.
On the events calendar.
Yeah, it's definitely your.
Yeah, on the events calendar on Aspen, the Zoom logins are usually there. Okay, so then we have the September 28th in Roundup, the South Central Federation. Anybody interested in that one? If not, I can, is that on a Saturday?
It's a Saturday.
Okay,
Mhm.
I can probably do that on Zoom.
okay, Carmen, thank you.
Which one was that? I'm so sorry.
The South
The
Central.
South Central,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, thank you, Carmen. I think I'll be at a football game. And,
It is football season.
yeah, and my grandson plays little guy football in Great Falls. Okay, and then the Pathfinder Federation in Fort Benton, I can possibly try to make that. I mean, that's close to me. I feel guilty for always picking that one, but I could possibly make that in person, but if not, I can do it online. How about the on October 3rd from 2 to 4, the Golden Plains Federation in Glasgow?
At this point, we might be traveling. So I hate to be the only one, but I might try to make that one.
Might try to make that one. Okay, thank you.
And I can let you know if that doesn't work.
Okay. Okay, so then we have the Sagebrush Federation in Miles City on October 4th. It will ask Tom if he's able to do one.
Sounds good.
And if not, I will I can do that one online possibly.
Okay.
I can be a backup on that one on Zoom if necessary.
Great. Okay. Perfect. All right, we haven't taken care of then. Thank you. So
Now-
September 5th will be Brian. Yes.
Oh, I couldn't tell if I signed up for I meant to sign up for the one on the 3rd. I have to go back.
The Golden Plains Federation in
Right.
Glasgow.
Yeah.
And it's from 2 to 4, Tammy.
Okay. All right. Like I said.
Now, if I end up able to attend one that I didn't speak up about right now, do I need to inform Genevieve just to make sure we don't end up with a quorum, even if we're just attending on Zoom? Is that quorum of commissioners an issue there?
It would be helpful. It's unlikely that we would have a quorum, but I think that would be helpful, Carmen.
Okay.
Okay, sorry, just a second. I'm putting these in my calendar also. Right, okay, great. Thank you, everybody, for volunteering. Let's see. Okay, all right. Is there any public comment on any matter not contained in this agenda and that is within the jurisdiction of the State Library Commission? Seeing as there is none, we will go on. Is there any other business or announcements? I do have another business. I would like to publicly apologize to Genevieve. Because during the last meeting, I complained because I said I had not heard where to log our Zoom meetings and calls. And the other day I was going through emails from last fall and found an email from Genevieve letting us know what to do about that. So I would like to apologize for me not reading that email, but I wanted to say that was October of this last year and we had a lot going on. So I'm blaming a lot going on. But I appreciate everything that Genevieve does do. She tries to keep us on task and in line, and it doesn't always work. Okay, anybody, is there any other business?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Yeah, I had a couple of things. Just first of all, back with the evaluation process, what I understand is the personnel committee will be developing the document. And then will we look at that document and approve it or see it in October so that we can make input on it?
I think that's a good idea. I think it would be good to have everyone's input on an evaluation tool. So yes, we will try.
Then we would be able to have it ready for the evaluation process to start in November.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it'll start in October after
the meeting. Okay. And then I had 2 items I'd like to put on for future discussion in the October meeting. I would like to bring back the right to read. I had concerns in the right to read policy that we passed about what the responsibility to the children in the libraries is. and I'd like to revisit that. And with mainly the focus on what we are legally allowed to have children read in libraries. I think if any of us, I would encourage people to look at a site, Book Looks, BOOKLOOKS. It's mainly aimed at school libraries, but it is parents who have started a review of books that they have received that they rate 1 through 5 for sexual content that is inappropriate for children. And I just would encourage all of us to look at that. I tried. I got through the C's and D's with looking at some of the items that were rated 4 and 5. I find it a very reasonable site. Somebody had complained about Lord of the Rings and they rated it a 1, which is not even just, you know, some issues, not even very obviously serious at all. So I think we need to look at the 4 and 5 so we understand better what is being put out there for children. And so I'd like to review the right to read. And then the second thing I'd like to review, I would ask that maybe we can get a report on the young adult library section, visiting our library and the other libraries I've had the chance to visit. The young adult section is very, very large. And I always assumed it was children. I think that, or not children, I mean teenagers, 13 to 18, 12 to 18, 13, I would say is young adult. And I'm thinking I just would like a report on what that really, how it's defined within the library and if that's a definition that we think is appropriate in Montana.
I'm not clear on how that's within the purview of the State Library Commission.
Okay. Do you want to say that?
Tammy, can you help me understand a little bit more about what you're asking? Just so I understand what's within the purview of the State Library.
Yes, obviously the right to read is our statement and we did approve that. So obviously that right to read statement has to be, I'd just like to revisit it. And then as far as the young adult, I think we need to be informed what's being done in our libraries. I'm not clear on young adult, but I'm hearing, maybe I've heard different definitions that it goes up to age 21, 23. I don't know that parents understand that. I think it's to be informed ourselves and be able to inform our parents and our parents out there and our users.
You'd like more information about how individual libraries are defining their YA sections if they have them.
Yes, or just in general, what is IA? How is it defined? And how are they following that?
So, but also the range of age is something
Yes, that's the main thing, the range of age. And again, I think most people that I've talked to assume that young adult is ages 13 to 18. Because after 18, they're an adult, but.
So across the state, you would like to basically know what the different libraries are.
Yeah, I think that standard is applied already. Who decides that? That's all I'd like to know.
We don't have a young adult standard. There isn't one. So I am not sure that this is something we'll have to do some research on. So I've made note of your request, but I don't know. I don't yet know. So we'll do some research and at least keep you up to date on the status of our research and get back to you when we have more information. But there is no young adult standard.
There is none from the American Library Association or anybody else.
There may be, but that's outside our purview.
Right. Elsie, what do you determine in schools? Do they have a young adult section usually? Is that?
Of course, and there are policies that school districts go ahead and proceed with their superintendent, and their board then votes on it. And those policies pretty much are general throughout our 401 school districts that we have. Some have a little bit unique flavor, but they pretty much all contain the same language. I can probably share that with the commission of what that policy looks like. I think you may also be referring to other activities that are in a library, whether it is a school library or a community library, county, however that might need to be. I don't know if we have any authority over that, but I believe the freedom to read statement is something that we have voted on in the past, and I would agree that that needs to be revisited.
Thank you.
Oh.
Comment I would like to make.
Yes, go ahead.
Our handbooks for trustees and for library directors give a lot of information, not only about the legal requirements in Montana, but we also, as a state library, recommend a lot of best practices in those manuals. So I think tackling the age divisions in library collections and giving a recommendation would probably be very helpful to library directors and also to trustees, because it seems to me that's an area where a lot of public input is happening and potential conflict. If we can make good recommendations and incorporate those in those handbooks, I think that would be absolutely within our purview to look into this.
So, Madam Chair, I have a curious question. I was not on the commission when this Freedom to Read statement was adopted. I just looked it up. Looks like it was adopted in August of 22. So that's 2 years ago. And I guess I'm wondering why some commissioners feel a need to revisit it just 2 years later.
Tammy, would you like to?
Yes, I would like to revisit it. When we passed it, I was very concerned about the vagueness of children being able to read anything they choose. I did not believe at the time that was appropriate. I felt that it should say legally, with the permission of their parents, with whatever. I don't think children can read anything they want in the library, or at least as a commission, we should be saying that. There's more of a need. The more I see that's out there for children, the more concerned I am that we're not protecting them and keeping them safe. And at that time, we were told that there legally could be nothing restraining what children are subject to, which I felt at the time was not appropriate. But I had no legal opinion otherwise, so we had to, it was passed by the majority of people. I've done research since then, and I think not only do we have the right to restrict what children are exposed to, but the responsibility. Children are being endangered, and we need to start protecting them, and at least making acknowledgement of that fact. And I know it's up to the individual libraries, but I think we have a responsibility to let them know that protecting children is a very, very important role for libraries. And again, I would ask you to go back and look at book looks, and I think there are actually what's called children's literature, children's books that are perpetuating violence against children.
I would like to comment on this issue. I understand Brian's concern of us going back and you know, looking at everything that was done in the past and stuff that wasn't done very long ago. I also wasn't on the commission when this need for this statement was perceived, or when this statement was created. To me, my first thought with freedom to read and right to read has to do with adults, that you as an adult The government cannot restrict what you look at, what you see, because otherwise we're turning into the Soviet Union, where you have the underground publishing and everything to get information out to people. That's not us. But I do feel that the landscape has changed, and my thoughts have turned more and more to age groups and what we as libraries are presenting as appropriate for different age groups. So from that viewpoint, I think it's not a bad idea to review this, because I think the publishing industry has changed. The YA designation is relatively new. It's definitely more than 2 years old. But I think it's valid to look at that again, because the concern for me personally has switched from, I want adults to be able to have access to absolutely any information they want, but I share Tammy's concern for what is being presented to people under 18. And I think our current statement doesn't really, I don't know. I think it's worth reviewing purely because of the age component. So that's my take on it, why I think it would be valuable to look at it, even though it was passed only 2 years ago.
Any other comments? Okay, so during our next meeting, let's revisit the right to read. And if you could go across the state and get a range of ages for the young adult section, that would be great. We would appreciate that.
And then the review of the trustee training manual.
You'd like the trustee training manual on the agenda?
Was that an agenda item, Carmen?
Well, we can make that an agenda item. We can look at all the recommendations for best practices that are in there. If this plays into the right to read statement, there might be a connection there. That's not a bad idea. Thank you, Tammy.
Okay, great. Any other business or announcements? All right, we're on the tail end of summer, everybody. Get out there and enjoy it. I have the Shoto County Fair this weekend, and I've been baking for the last 2 days with my red-headed grandson. And redhead is exactly what he is. Although he says he's orange, and yes, he is. So I've been busy doing that and writing recipe cards and struggling to get him to do that is, yes, but he loves to bake, but he also has a pig. And so, yeah, at the fair, so it's going to be a hard day on Sunday when he has to load that little loader up, yeah, so it'll be tough. All right, enough about me. Do I have a motion to adjourn? We are ahead of time, folks. Good job.
So moved.
I want to thank Elsie for sharing your expertise. You have so much that you are responsible for. When you said 401 school districts, I was just, wow. I think all of us who are in education just are amazed that load can be carried. Thank you for that. And I just want everybody to pray that summer slows down.
Summer slows down.
Yes, it's going too fast. Can it really be August?
I know it. I know. My grandkids start school next Wednesday. It's terrible. Yeah, it's over. So yes, I agree. But life needs to slow down too. All in all. So do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Thank you, Brian. Do we have a second?
I second that.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that the August 14th, 2024 meeting of the Montana State Library Commission is adjourned. That was hard to say. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
See you again soon.
Thank you all.